everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. This is going to be a very, very, very special night. And this is a tribute to Peter Wein. But before I go into any details of the show, I want to pass out our deepest sympathies to the folks out in Kansas City that went through that parade. And unfortunately, there was a casualty there. So, our hearts and prayers go to each and every one of you. Also, my hearts are always going to be out to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas out here in Parkland. I know that there was a Valentine's Day shooting that occurred a few years back. So I know the pain is very fresh in their mind, losing, in both cases, these incidents happen beyond Valentine's Day. So we have a really, really good show. Let me go ahead and introduce the crew first. Candy Ebling's going to be a part of this. This is going to be unbelievable. And then we got Denzel Snipes, who's going to be on here as well. Candy, glad that you're on. Glad you are. This is and Denzel, welcome back from Las Vegas.
Thank
you, Candy, she's messing with the camera, so I don't know who's talking, who isn't, whether I'm seeing double, triple, or whatever. It doesn't
Candy,
matter.
You look different.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's Denzel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, Denzel's back from Las Vegas. All right, Denzel, glad to have you back on the air with us.
Hey, thanks for having me back, man. It was an awesome time out there, and I'll shed a little bit more light about my experiences tomorrow on Pundit. But I do know this is a very special episode for you, so just get rolling.
All right, Candy, once again, I'm glad that you're going to be the master producer here. Why don't you give everybody a little bit about what's in store for tonight?
So Peter Wein was Scott's co-host on the Sports Exchange when he started it back up. Oh gosh, 8 years ago, I'd say. And they did it on Peter's network. It was the WEI network. It was an internet radio. And they did 2-hour shows Tuesday and Thursday nights from 5 to 7 p.m. And they would get guests, but the two of them would talk, and Peter was a New Yorker, and you could tell from his accent, and him against the Motor City Mad Mouth, and they had some interesting discussions and debates, and they had some great chemistry, and it was awesome because I would sit in the studio and I would watch them, and it was just a delight to see both of them so happy and excited about talking about sports and the sports from their town, and they had some great guests on. And it's neat, and it's too bad Peter fell ill and he unfortunately passed away. So rest in peace, Peter. This is a tribute to you and how you and Scott did reunited the Sports Exchange and started it back up.
We were getting about 4,000 to 6,000 people on our shows, which was really unbelievable. I'm going to miss the time when Peter used to mispronounce my name, Morganworth, all the time, as you guys are going to find out.
Oh, so I don't feel guilty now for all those times.
Morganworth.
Well, Peter did it in a way. The guy's from Queens, New York, in the New York area. So whatever he did, it was just so funny coming from this guy. I could sit there and tell you, I can't say I looked up to Peter Wein at all, because he was shorter than I am, but I looked up to him waist-wise. But it was unbelievable. We had a good time. I used to say, I know you're never going to get it right, so just keep getting it wrong anyways. And there's a picture to the right part of the screen with Peter and I, and you can see the height differential. There was no hat there, and he is in my book, by the way, Lessons from the Microphone, and there's a good special part in there as well. Peter died on Saturday at the age of 73, and oh boy, you talk about a guy who, to me, you really, there needs to be more Peter Weins out there. So, Jacob.
Yeah. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right.
Sorry about the voice, a little bit down, but you know something? I think about this we all have our, I was thinking about this with Peter Wein, and it's like, we all have our, you could say this, mentors, people that you said look up and everything, even though you were taller. But, we all have, they all come into our life in some which way. There's a reason for them to be there, to get it to that next level. You and George came in mind, Denzel, everybody's side came through. And it's like, everybody can have a skill, but we all need that extra oomph. And it sounds like Peter was yours.
Sure was. And you know what? George Eichhorn appeared on a lot of shows with Peter and I. George, why don't you give some of your feelings about Peter, and then Candy will roll the first opening, and then we'll have another clip later. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, and unfortunately, with the Super Bowl and everything going on there, I kind of got the news late. And not that's on me, not on you. And I was really, really sorry. I just felt that you guys had great chemistry, Scott and Peter. You had your your teams and that you've covered, and or in Peter's case, he's really pulling for certain New York teams and that. But no, you guys had amazing chemistry. I mean, I was so glad when you hooked up with him. It meant a lot to me, Scott, because I know you were searching. Many years ago, you've moved down to Florida and that, so I figured it was going to happen sooner or later. And I was just so happy for you too, and for Candy. But I mean that Peter came into your life and was there as a partner, and you learned a lot from him. He learned from you, and it's just one of those things. Like Jacob said, you always remember somebody that either mentored you or became sort of like an idol for you, and to follow his example is just tremendous. I mean, he had all those shows on his Wii network, and he really laid the groundwork for what you and Sideline and Candy and South Florida Journal has been working on these last couple of years. So he's a great man for sure.
Well, the way the partnership came together, and if I wanted to get into the radio business a lot sooner than I returned, I could have bought airtime for any of the terrestrial radio shows. I wasn't going to do that. There's no way I'm going to do it. Why? I feel I should get paid. Okay, like any professional. But again, part of the reason I didn't do it was mainly because a lot of those stations would not allow you to use their stations as a way to get credentialed to games. And that was one of the sticking points I had. But the relationship I worked out with Peter was, here's a guy with internet radio, and I had just started a fledgling publication called the South Florida Tribune. So I said, bring me on a couple times a week, Tuesday and Thursday. We worked out. We had to find times that it didn't interfere with his programming. That way we start the week off with updates, and then you end the week with previews about the weekend. And we were able to work out a time that was mutually beneficial for both sides. We would go out there and network a lot. He would do a lot of cross promotion with me when we went to Transmedia, which is in Boca Raton as well. So we were able to do that where we made a trade. And you know what? His name is, we created a Facebook page, which was really good with us. We really did. And that will stay there forever. He's on the South Florida Tribune anyways, and he'll never leave there. And he's in my book. So Peter Wein may not be with here physically, but he's there spiritually, and he's going to be with me wherever I go.
Yeah.
So with that said, let me just get some other stuff out. Then I want to go to some clips that are really good. Just want to let everybody know that the Sports Exchange is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of the Sports Exchange can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube. South Florida Tribune, we're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in the chat room or send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Also, Sideline Sports is also done by Candy Ebling as well. Great stuff over there. Our Twitter/X is at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes. She'll give a couple insights again on Wein. And of course, I have a book out there called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, for which Wein is in it. And it talks about old school media versus new school media. And it's available on Kindle and Amazon. All right. With that said, Candy, all right, go ahead and let's let everybody get to know a little bit about Peter Wein and the Sports Exchange.
So I'm going to preface this by saying this was their intro to one of their shows. And here it goes.
Get ready. It's time for the Sports Exchange. Talk, interviews, opinions, and a lot more. Sports from around the globe. It's time with Scott Morganworth and Peter Wein.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Scott Morganroth of Motor City Madmouth, in the house with Peter Wein and Samuel K. And, well, guys, we got ourselves a great show today, don't we?
You were listening to the W.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, it's been a show I've waited a long, long time for. And our featured guest here this afternoon is going to be my childhood idol, Mickey Lolich, the MVP of the 1968 World Series. But before we get into a lot of those,
Who did they beat in the World
the
Series?
St. Louis Cardinals.
The Cards.
And Mr. Lolich, although don't never call him that on the air, he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Won 3 games and hit a home run in game 2 of that series, and they were 3 complete games. So Mickey, why he's not in the Hall of Fame is anybody's guess. But before we go into the agenda this afternoon,
Are we allowed to ask him his opinion?
Of what?
Why he's not in the Hall of Fame?
Well, that was one of the things I planned to talk to him about.
Okay.
That's going to be a good question.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll have an answer for that and a whole lot more. But before we go into today's agenda, there has been a change in the schedule for this Thursday. The Sports Exchange will not, and I repeat, will not be covering the Gator Nationals. Instead, I got a very good opportunity to cover the Sebring 12 hours right up the road in Sebring, Florida. So
Right.
I'm looking forward to doing a
Very
remote
cool.
there. Oh,
Very
yeah.
Cool.
My wife's friend over at Chase Bank, Fallon Dard, told me that, Scott, that's a heck of an event that you're going to go to.
Yeah.
And
That's big. That's like in golf, it would be one of the 4 majors.
right. And there's no question.
Right. I'm glad I could hook you up with that.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. Not. Okay. I got connections all over the globe, as you call it in your network. But yeah, Ken Breslauer and I talked about it. And, we're working on trying to find guests he'll be on. It's one of those kind of things where you try to find people, in the paddock and the area, the media center. And the goal is to make sure we have a very energetic couple of hours, and that's what I'm going to be. So a lot of you folks that were thinking about Gator Nationals, Gator Nationals has been is no longer on the agenda for Thursday, and the Sebring 12-hour race is going to be an incredible event, and I'm looking forward to bringing you live coverage of that event on Thursday. So myself and Ken Breslauer will be there. Great guest last Tuesday, wasn't he? He gave us a good overview, a lot of good drivers. If you're looking for...
I'm interested to get your take on the course being part cement and part not cement.
Right. Well, I'll give you that take when I get up there and see it firsthand. All I know is I had a chance to drive by it a while back with my wife, Candy, and, we had a chance to look at it, but until I got serious into this project, I'll be spending an awful lot of time there come Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Well, there you go. We previewed the show, what we were doing there. And as you can tell, Peter Wein was true to his style. Morgan Worth, okay. So Denzel Snipes, pretty easy. Long before anybody else botched my name, he did it for. And the thing about him is he used to do it all the time. So once you figured out what it really was, it was okay. But Peter was, so, George, give me your impressions of what you saw with that little clip.
Well, Peter is, he likes to be obviously in control of all the situations. I like how he's trying to take credit for setting you up there at Sebring. And I don't know if he was just doing a little pop quiz. And who did the Tigers beat, Scott, in 1968? And
The hated Cardinals.
He was just having some fun with you, I'm sure. Of course, we'll never forget who they beat. And it's part of his personality, his persona, where, he kind of likes the one-liners or kinds of throw a little dart and see if you can hit the bullseye with it. It's just kind of his style. That's what I noticed most of all there. He's having a little bit more fun with you.
What about you, Denzel? What'd you take out of that?
From just looking at with Mr. Wein, and I know you wouldn't get the reference because you're not a comic book head, but his appearance kind of reminds me of Jacob. You would know this. His appearance kind of reminds me of Whistler from Blade. And those of y'all who know about the character, don't know about the character, Whistler is the one that taught Blade everything that he knows. And so tying that to this is the guy that taught everything that you needed to know at least past the college level. And I think it's really important. And I think that you're lucky to have formed a partnership on air directly with your mentor. This is a little different because it's not like your mentor is somewhere off screen, and then it's like you talk about the episode, talk about some rights and wrongs, and then you go on the air and then you execute what you learned. But this is you guys on the air and having that chemistry, and then you can have the luxury of talking afterwards. I full on believe that the foundation to any success is a mentor. Someone has to teach you the ropes. Someone has to point you down that road. And it really seems like he was that type of guy in your life that taught you everything and made sure that your well-being was great on the air and off the air as well, and that you were well taken care of in your profession. And so just from what I've seen, just from the post and on that clip right there, most definitely sounds like an awesome guy. And you may not be the only one. He may have mentored, a lot. I mean, you could probably tell better than I can, but that's what you're supposed to do when you get in your later years, much like what you're doing right now, Scott, is when you get to a certain point, you're supposed to be the teacher. You're supposed to be the professor with your pupils. You're supposed to be the one putting ones on. And that's something that he followed because someone mentored him and he paid it forward. And so I know you're greatly appreciative of somebody like that in your life because anybody would.
Well, let me tell you this. I've been in the business 44 years, and I picked up a lot of things from him. But let me tell you, we would talk in the morning all the time. There was every day we would, and when we got together, he would ask me a lot of tricks about some of the things I had done in the past too. So it's one of those things where I'm mentoring him because of his words. He's mentoring me because I needed words of wisdom because only like older than I am. He's 73 now, and I'm 61. So he got about a dozen years. So I would pick his brain, but he would pick mine too because he knows I had interviewed an awful lot of people and been around the business. But when you had a situation with the two of us, you had totally two different personalities, what you did. And yeah, he mentored me in a lot of ways. He's just a smooth character, this guy. I mean, he had 10, 12 shows on a day. He had more shows faster than the auto industry could go out there and produce automobiles. They were all in and out of that studio like you would believe. Who's next? Who's next? Who's next? And then when he was out with me for 2 hours, he didn't have to go in every hour. I mean, he got to grind it out with me. And, the one thing that few people know about Peter Wein, though, is we did a sports show, but he did a lot of things outside of sports. And one of the things that he did was he was big in the entertainment business. One of my former colleagues, who I'm still in touch with, her name was Rachel Galvin, who's the former editor of the Deerfield Beach Observer, is heavy into entertainment. And Peter used to work with her a lot. And her and I talked about Peter recently. And of course, Rachel's going to be doing stuff with us eventually down the road here on the network. But Rachel, to me, benefited because of his entertainment involvement. And, they both work well together. Rachel and I work well together at the Observer. But Peter and I were just two different birds. Yeah, he mentored me a lot in certain areas of words of wisdom. But when he wanted to pick my brain about what I used to do years ago, it was a different animal. It was like, you always love mentors because they're father figures, mother figures, or whatever. Candy, why don't you describe, before we turn over to Jacob, what that was like between the two of us going back and forth, exchanging information?
Well, one of the things I wanted to say too, with what Denzel had said, is that yes, he was a mentor, but Scott, you hadn't been in radio for a little while at that point, and your background was radio and writing for many years, and this brought you into internet radio, which was a realm that you hadn't been in before. And then not only was it internet radio, and what's internet radio, because it was on screen as well as just like everybody says, oh, I have a face for radio, or I have a voice for radio, but now you're on screen as well. And so that's something that was different for you, that you hadn't had as much exposure to, or it had been a while. And so it helped you propel the South Florida Tribune into this YouTube channel and what we're doing now. And it was exciting to watch you transform from being just a writer back into, because I had never seen that part of you, with a radio side of you, exciting on air and bringing it to life, and then bringing it to on screen. And so it was always interesting to watch how that developed and how you, let's see, how the technology side of both of you came through. Should I say from the internet radio, and then how, unfortunately, when Peter got sick a number of years ago, him and his wife got really sick and had a stroke, and he took a step back and he had to stop. And all of a sudden, Scott was like, "Well, what do I do? I want to keep going. I'm so excited of doing this, but he's not there for for me to do it with." And so that's what really, when we decided to go into podcasting, and we started with just the podcast side, and then we're like, well, wait a minute, we also are missing that visual side, this side where you can see us talking, and we can talk with each other and interact and see facial expressions and stuff like that, and how interesting that was. So I think he was really the person that precipitated, that really got us going and moving into this direction. And so I think that was cool. And he introduced us to other people, because he was the reason why you got involved with Lisa Bartola, who was into entertainment, and she's the one that got you with noticing that Chuck Wepner came to town, and so you interviewed Chuck Wepner, who is the real Rocky. For those of you that know that, yes, yep. And you also interviewed Muhammad Ali Jr. and talk to him and have an interview with him. And so I think it's just interesting how it's people that help get you doors and get you interviews with people that you might not have necessarily met. And through Peter is what was the common ground with all of that. And what he did for you and your career and your broadcasting was just so exciting to see. And the relationship the two of you had on the air, the excitement, you could hear it and see it, 2 hours every Tuesday and Thursday night. It was awesome.
Thank you, Candy. You know what's interesting, though? When Peter fell ill, and we talked about this when I saw him last June, and of course, I talked to him recently on the phone before he passed. He said, because I got sick, I'm proud of you that you forced yourself to learn the technology side, which you didn't like. I'm proud that you went out there and stayed with it, and went out there and forced yourself and willed yourself to learn, and you become well. And I'm proud that you're a guy that I was able to mentor. And, it's just unbelievable. Well, Denzel, you do a lot of producing shows of your own, right?
Of course.
There may be some things in the business you don't like to do, but you have no choice but to do it, or it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And I did. And I think that's what made it so, remember, George and I are from terrestrial radio days. Was my first act being on ABC radio. But, that's what Peter and I did. We were just two peas in a pod where, he'd laugh at me, and, we'd talk afterwards, critique the shows, cross promotion, all that. And yeah, Lisa and Chuck Wetmer, Muhammad Ali Jr., and I'm glad, Jacob, that you're absorbing all of this too, because I'll turn to you in about a moment. But I think the thing that's about when you reach an individual like this is not only is he well-rounded, not only on the air, he did other things before he got in internet radio. He's a successful businessman, but his personality was a natural for this business. And when you take a look at the old school versus the new school, and Candy's got a picture to the right part of our screen with Peter and I, we blended well because we came from different eras. So I was educating him early, and then I acclimated to what he's doing. And that's why when we built the South Florida Tribune Network, we started with audio, and then we moved on to Zoom, and then we brought it over to StreamYard and the YouTube channel. So there's a progression with everything that you do, just like we've tried to do at the Sports Exchange and Pundits Fund It. I know with Pundits Fund It, you guys only knew of the visual way until you guys became familiar when we brought it over our end, that there was an audio side that Denzel was excited about when he knew it was on Spotify. But we had a lot of the same type of transitional pieces as well. But Peter was just unbelievable. He really was. But we were just too. I mean, he got me. You know what? I'll turn over to Jacob in a moment. But I got to mention this story. We're over at Meisner Park, trying to see if we can find some sponsors. So I don't like to wear these weird hats. They said, come on, Scott, you got to do it. It's okay. I promise you, it won't be that bad. So he finds two hats out there. So Peter, I'm really not comfortable doing it. Scott, it's okay. Don't worry. So he comes up with these two hats. Which one do you want? Well, you know what I did? I took the police officer's hat and he took some other weird hat out there. If you look on my Facebook page, you'll see the different hats. Okay, well, he was happy. We took a picture of this photo. He said, well, good cop, bad cop. And I'm wearing the cop hat. And he's wearing whatever he's wearing. So he didn't care what hat at least he was able to get me to do it. And that's what it's all about. All right, Jacob, you've been patiently waiting. Go ahead.
Okay, Denzel, you call him Whistler. I call him Miyagi. Just taking a look at shorter. Yeah,
good call.
I'll call him that. But taking a look at that, I mean, a little more of a beard, I guess. But look at, considering you two going back and forth, Scott, I get the feeling I missed a big opportunity to go back and forth with this guy. He and I could have had some one-liners like crazy. We could have had some one-liners. This would have been fun. But, the big thing is that, another comparison, I'll say this also, George, if anybody goes into the economics references, we've got the Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett there. It's like one's the grumpy, kind of a grumpy grouch and says what he feels, and the other's just kind of laid back and says it all smart and waits. And that's what it felt like also with watching those two. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. But one of the things about it is sometimes it comes earlier than others. Sometimes it comes late when you get a friend like these. You know what I'm saying? I'm definitely later. I'm like, I caught all of mine at like 41. It's his fourth year now, 42 maybe. It's like this could have. This just shows people it's never too late to keep building something up. And it's like you find somebody in the middle of everything, and it's like the ones that quit are the ones that they can regret it. And this had to be fun to do a show with him every day. It doesn't even feel like work. You want to know another thing? It feels like Denzel. You'll get my reference. Gorilla and Bobby.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
You'll get the reference. It's Monsoon and Bobby for WWE. It feels like it's just two sniping back and forth at each other. Like, will you stop? Like, I'm going to knock you out. That kind of thing. That's what it felt like with those two. That's what it felt like with those two. And it's like, and that's the thing. It's fun to have BS. My dad used to call it in a cleaner way on the air, but BSers. It's fun to have BSers around you. That's why Cheers was so fun for 11 years. You just have BSers. You're not taking things that seriously. It's life. You're having fun. That's what the thing is. Life should be that fun. Just like, don't be so dang tight. Just enjoy each other. Don't get so offended. And I can see you two having fun like that.
If you look at our Sports Exchange page on Facebook, and I encourage folks that are on Facebook to look at the Sports Exchange, Candy took this incredible picture of us with us boxing and me putting my fist right to his jaw and him trying to undercut me. It was unbelievable. Then again, I'm taller than he is, and I'm hammering. I always used to like to take those pictures anyways.
Oh, he did it to me, guys. Scott would get this fist right under George's face.
Yeah, folks, go to that Facebook page and look for Sports Exchange. You'll see Peter and I, and that's just exactly what pretty much Jacob is. It really is Facebook, whatever I said, and then you'll see what a comic this guy was. So, that's the way it is. So with that said, we do have a couple things we're going to get to, but you know what? Again, you look at the right part of your screen. Peter Wein and I over at the Transmedia Studio. So, we'll talk a little bit of sports. So I'm going to turn over to Jacob first, okay? I want to ask you, Jacob, everybody, take whatever time you need, but, we have a couple other topics here too. I'll lead off with Jacob. Who's the biggest mentor in your life, Jacob?
I'll say this. It was obviously my father for all my life.
Okay.
He's been gone since 2010. It was obviously that. It's everybody with this thing, and you and George especially, but I will say this. It's been tough after Dad went because I was a lot of people's mentor for doing different things. I have been. So you don't think you need it in your own head. But then there's people that live longer. You know what I'm saying? There's people that lived longer, that seen it. It's like, and then you've always got to have them around. They give you a little bit of a reality check of things. So it's like, ever since I've had that first show with JB and everything, and then we run into you guys, and it's like, so I wanted George in the first place with this show and everything. So I have no question, you two, you know what I mean? And it's like, because you've had even if I have everything that I see on, that I put out the topics and I see things and might have a little bit of wisdom, and I appreciate people thinking that, you know what I'm saying? And doing that, even if I have those type of deals, it's just the fact that if people that have lived longer, seen more, and things I'm not going to know, just because it's like when you're 45 and someone's in their 60s, it's like a 10, 15-year-old. It's there's things they're just not going to know. And that's the same within a 65 talking to an 85-year-old. Maybe it's about aging. Maybe it's about pain that you don't see yet. There's just things. So I'm going to say you two, no question about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know what? Before I turn it over to Denzel, for those who want to know my mentors, okay, I'll tell you a great place to find them. Lessons from the Microphone, okay? Tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders, okay? Available at Kindle and Amazon. And then you get to read them all. And that's where I'm leaving it. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Denzel. Sure, mentor.
All right. I don't have one solid one, so it's gonna go through like stages of my life.
Sure,
So bear
that's
with me.
okay.
Just like Jacob, of course, the first one is your pops. And then a little bit after that, and also just kind of intermingling in with like my uncles and my family, as well. And then I get into the military, and there's 4 throughout my time period there. One of them was now retired Senior Master Sergeant Gary Watts, and then also now retired Chief Master Sergeant Daryl Dew. And then a little bit later on, there was now retired Master Sergeant Sorensen, and then retired Senior Master Sergeant Suzanne Soquette. Those 4, when it came to shaping me, like in the military, not only as, someone that's growing to be a leader and someone that became a leader as well, they were very, very staple in that. And then right after that, I got out. I went to college, and one of my main professors, Dr. Doug Mendenhall, out of Abilene Christian University, currently still there. He was one of my professors for a lot of classes I was in, and he also was a mentor. He's still a mentor to this day. I still contact him and update him on everything. He's with the journalism and mass communications department up there at ACU. He actually has an awesome editorial that he puts out there. So please, go and check him out also on Facebook, Doug Mendenhall on Facebook. I believe that's the only platform that he's on, really. And then I came across Uncle Scott, Uncle George, and Aunt Candy, and here we are. And so it's like at every stage that I've been in life, I've had somebody look out for my well-being, and I'm always appreciated of that, because when I get in my 50s, 60s, and later, that's the same thing that I want to do as well. Now there are some in their 20 somethings right now. I'll be 42 years old this year. There's some 20 somethings, that I still offer advice to and everything like that. So I'm getting to the mentor, area. But I do know that this business, there's a lot, just like you, Scott, George, there's a lot to learn. You never stop learning, So, but I'm getting to that point, but I know I got a long way to go. But as far as mentors in my life, by stage, that's who was the most important to me and who I still revere to this day.
All right, one person I do want to add, though, as far as my writing, and George knows him all too well because he introduced me to him, Tony DeMarco is my mentor in writing. And I'm going to tell you, Tony's the most unbelievable person on the planet. I'll leave it at that. The rest you read in the book. But Tony DeMarco taught me how to write, and now I've been able to do it for a long time. When I talk to him again, I'm sure Tony's noticed the fact that I wrote a book, far cry from the guy that he went out there in Florida who gave me a sporting news and start reading other writers so I could get an idea how the good ones do it. And here I am, gray and all, doing it. So, Tony, you're out there watching, fine. Otherwise, we're going to be talking at some point or another. And thanks for the acknowledgement, Denzel. You and Jacob, to me, have become a part of the family. JB Ellis as well. And to be able to watch you guys grow on a week in and week out basis, to me, is nothing short of outstanding. All right, Jacob, you got something you want to add to it?
Yeah, I wanted to add to what I said because I forgot,
Sure.
Just because I had my.
It's okay. Go ahead.
If I got to say one, I'm just gonna have to say my brother Tom.
Okay.
There is a pundit because of him. I lived with him for 14 months. He and I lived together in a house for 14 months. I got this big, enormous, giant basement in this place. He gets the upstairs. You know what I'm saying? And let's just say, I'm just going to say this part, it wasn't fair. my room got to be a whole studio practically, even though there wasn't hardly any stuff in it, you know? You get basically, it's one of those places where you can definitely live during COVID if I stayed indoors, of course, you know, which I didn't. But here's the thing, though. He had to be a mentor to give advice with a very stubborn little brother. You know, we're so different of personality. I'm not going to go into that. I think it'll take too long, take too much time. We're too stubborn of personality for everything, and he's able to get through it anyway and slowly chip away. Because he had to chip away at me, and I had to kind of chip away at him. I always say the little things about each other. We had to learn a lot about each other. He might have known more than I thought he did about me. You know what I'm saying? But he did that. And there is no pundit without him. There isn't. I came up with the name, but he came up with the idea that I needed to do with sports while we were in the COVID. And ends up JB meets me, and then everything goes from here. And there is nothing without him. And there's not a lot of things without his stubborn willingness to make me listen. And I'm like, okay, chip away. He is a good brother. There's just so much different in our personality. You know what I'm saying?
I'm glad you added that. I was over at the funeral yesterday, and it's really good to be able to pay my respects to Pete. And I'm talking to his youngest daughter, Rachel. What a sweetheart she really is. And so I told her, I'm Scott. I work with your dad on the sports. He said, oh, I know all about that show. I'm thinking, oh, gosh, what do these people think? What did Peter tell this one? So she jokes around with me. You know, she says, I don't know nothing about technology. You know, she says to me in her own sweet way. The only thing Dad knew about technology was what he knew in the studio. But when he got out of that studio knowing his own equipment, he didn't know much afterwards. So, I mean, it was just funny. Rachel's a sweetheart, as a lot of the Weens are. But I got to know her probably the most of any of them. I think, you know, his oldest daughter, Alexandria, got to know her a little bit. But Rachel is just Rachel. I mean, we just joked around my technology or lack thereof and his limited. But, you know, but when we talked about the Sports Exchange, there were a lot of people that knew about that show. And again, between him and I talked, what would you expect anyways? Candy, anything you want to add to it real quick about your mentor before we turn over to George?
Oh, where do I start? There's all kinds of mentors. I mean, I would say my first mentor, or one of my very first, was one of my grandmothers. She lived to be 96 years old. She managed a 110-acre crop farm all by herself for the last 10 years of her life. But her family had owned the farm for over 100 years. So she taught me so much and mentored me. And then, of course, both my parents. And then I would really say my first boss, Jim Zilke. He really mentored me. I worked for him for 15 years. He was in the military, and he taught me lots. And I'm lucky if I'm part of the person that all of those people, you know, I think as a mentor, if you take a little bit of each of them and make them yourself, you're that much more better. And so I'm grateful and thankful to all of them. And I'm gonna say, at this point in my life, I would say my husband Scott, you are part of my mentor as well, because you are bringing me along in this journey and helping me grow in this journey and in this phase of my life. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Candy. I appreciate it. Your dad is a mentor of some
That's all.
sorts with me a little. And the reason why I say that is because this guy had the greatest sense of humor on the planet. I can get into stories about him. I'm just glad he wasn't my math teacher. I'm his son, otherwise you could only imagine how those conversations like that. Because math is my worst subject. So at least you're not my math teacher, and I'm your.
Oh, I empathize with you totally. Keep math away from me.
Numbers are my favorite, but I'm just not good at algebra.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. Don't feel too bad for a lot of you folks that are tuning in. If you're great at English, you're bad at math. So don't feel too
Not
bad.
me.
You write well,
Not me.
but that's why you have
That
calculators.
actually is
All
true.
right, so there's a rare
No.
bird for everybody.
Not
All
me.
right,
I'm a
George.
math guy and an English guy.
Well, okay, so there's a rare bird. Okay. And I can't say to you, are you crazy? Because we're all crazy because you know both, and we only know one.
Yeah.
I miss my are you crazy moment for this show. We still have to keep it sympathetic. All right. All right, George, go to your mentor. Then I want to get to a couple sports subjects before we wrap it up with Pete. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, there's just guys, my mind is going crazy right now. Besides my
Oh, you
parents, of
boy.
course, my late parents. There was a gentleman that took me under his wing at my church that I went to, Mr. Caramagno, Dominic Caramagno, and he was my mentor as I grew spiritually, and I grew with my volunteerism at my church, and just a great guy. In fact, he owned a business, and I worked for him for a while for some pay, and just became a great person to be around. And as far as the writing and the radio business, I tell you, there's so many of them. I mean, I got a break with a fellow named Ron Cameron, and as Scott and I know, that was an ABC owned and operated outfit, WXYZ Radio. That was a tremendous opportunity for me. I'm sorry things didn't work out at the end there. But then, there were opportunities at Wayne State University. And you mentioned Tony DeMarco. And Tony was the sports editor at the Wayne State newspaper, and he brought me on board as one of his sports writers. So I'm always grateful to him. He was a great, and still is a great man and a great writer, great humanitarian. There's of how could we forget? And I know Scott's going to have a lot of these people in his book, but the great Ernie Harwell, and what Ernie did, and his sidekick Paul Carey, and how they kind of coached and let me learn from them. There was at Wayne State, there was a teacher named Judy Rose, and Judy was a former newspaper writer for the Detroit Free Press, and she guided some of my uh, aspirations, if you will, in a certain direction. And how can I ever forget my late editor and publisher, Horace Mann? I
Yeah,
mean, Horace
Horace.
Mann from the Detroit Monitor. I mean, Scott and I came up, and Scott's mom came up with some great story ideas, and also, Horace. He just let us. He let us go. He let us obtain the knowledge that we needed, and to make the Monitor, even though it was a weekly paper, it really put it on the map. And the coverage that me and Scott especially gave to the local teams, and on the national stage as well. As Scott has mentioned before, he's been to Super Bowls. I've been to Super Bowls. We've been to playoffs and all that. I had a chance to cover the Winter Olympics a little bit. And so Horace, we miss you, Horace, and Paul. You're doing a great job with the Monitor right now, but I can never forget him. And like I said, George Blaha, it's always been a friend of mine, and always given me advice on different things. And of course, Scott and I know Tom Gage and Lynn Henning. So there's so
Right.
many professional writers and broadcasters that we've been fortunate enough, being in a big city like Detroit, that we've been able to partner with and talk to and seek advice from and mentoring. So I think it's probably best that I stop right there, because I'll get too long-winded. I've already said a lot, but I look back and a big thank you to all of them and of course Scott, being a partner, but Scott's also been a mentor, and I know I've tried to do that, with him as well, and so we've bounced a lot of things off each other, and so that thing goes hand in hand. But thank you for letting me share, though.
Oh, no problem. Hey, listen, you know what? Without mentors, we don't have guidance. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say my dad's been a mentor in a lot of ways, but I don't have that much time to get into everything he's done. But I'm
Yeah.
going to mention he's been on there. Another guy by the name of Harold Colwall taught me about treating life as a chess game, which has really benefited me greatly. And of course, Ernie Harwell and you and I and Ernie used to hang out all the time, so it wasn't a big deal. But have somebody like Ernie in your corner giving you tips on the inside what to do. But my dad, Harold Colwall, and all that. So yeah, no, I'm glad you had a chance. This is an opportunity for us to pay tribute to a guy. Let's go talk a little sports. We don't have to really be too opinion on these other couple subjects, but I do want to get a couple in. I do want to congratulate the Kansas City Chiefs for defeating the San Francisco 49ers. Unfortunately, at the parade today in Kansas City, 10 people were injured. The last count I got, one was killed on Valentine's Day. Again, another mass shooting that took place. I dealt with this thing with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in Parkland a few years ago, as I mentioned. Some quick thoughts, and I mean really quick here, Jacob, about this occurrence in Kansas City.
You don't have to worry about me, I'll tell you. No,
I mean,
so that we have a real mental illness problem, among other things. Real anger problem with people. We do. People, there's a different anger. It's been really exacerbated since COVID. There was other things, but we just really do. And it's like, maybe it wouldn't be as easy with other weapons, but other weapons would be used with people. People are just angry. People are just ugly to each other. And the thing is, and you want to know, we all talked about mentors tonight. There's people that don't have mentors, and this is what happens. They don't have that one to talk to. They don't have the therapist to talk to, the psychiatrist to talk to. They don't have somebody on that thing. It's all social media, which is antisocial. And this is what we have, and this is what we do, and it's going to keep happening, unfortunately, whatever happens, and I hate to see it.
Okay. All right. Hi, Eddie Prather. Thanks for coming in on YouTube. We appreciate it. Denzel, some thoughts about the unfortunate occurrences in Kansas City.
Oh, man. I flew back Sunday morning. I landed here in Houston. And of course, I was coming back and I was going to, get unpacked, get unwinded, and, kind of get ready for the game later. And at Lakewood Church, which is formerly known as the Summit, the Rockets' old venue, there was a shooting there. And it was all over the news and everything. And I was just like, wow, on Super Bowl Sunday. And now you get this, a team that had to overcome all odds and win the Super Bowl, and then someone comes in there during the parade and decide that they want to take lives. I mean, you think back to when COVID happened and people were afraid to go outside, obviously because of the disease. And, it's almost like it's getting back to people are afraid to come outside because they don't know if they're going to catch a bullet, but something does have to be done about this. I'm not going to go into politics because that's not what we're about. I'll just let people use their imagination whenever I say that. But something absolutely has to be done, because for somebody to go in what will be one of the biggest days, well, obviously not now, it's bittersweet, but what should have been one of the biggest days of 2024 for the city of Kansas City, to celebrate a Super Bowl victory and just go in and ruin the fun. Something has to be done about this. I know this caught the attention of some bigwigs, and I would expect something to come down in the coming weeks, if not months. But yeah, thoughts to those out there who are affected by this. It's just a shame. It's a total shame.
Yeah, really. All right, George.
Yeah, I was shocked to hear the news. Very disappointed. Of course, you guys know, I mean, we have a tremendous event coming here in a couple months called the NFL Draft. There'll be thousands of people visiting and thousands more coming from all over the state and the city. And when you hear something like this, oh my gosh, you just think back to, all the planning that has to go into place. But, we can't have policemen on every corner. We can't have a policeman in everybody's home. And like you said, until we attack this problem, until we're able to do something to help these people that seek help and need help. We just held, Scott had the sad anniversary. We just had the 1-year anniversary of the 3 students at Michigan State University that got killed, on Lincoln's, I think it was one day before Valentine's Day last year, February 13th. And of course, we got 4 students killed in the suburb of Oxford a couple of years back, and the trial's going on for his parents. But we need to do something as a nation. We need to do something and rally around together to try to prevent these things from happening, because it's just a shame that this is putting such a terrible stain on our celebrations and on our communities right now.
Okay, one thing I want to mention real quick, turn over to Candy, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of news subjects here, is when Candy and I had an opportunity to go to we can call it an opportunity, so we had to go to the Parkland situation, that funeral out there, to see Coach Aaron Feist, as well as all the other casualties that part of it was just sad. This stuff has to stop. Candy, some quick recollections. I'll get to a couple of news stories real quickly, and then we'll turn it over to Peter to finish it off.
6 years ago today, Nicholas Cruz walked into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and shot and killed 17 children when they were at school. Today, we witnessed, we didn't witness, but we've heard of, there was 22 injured, shot, going to a parade to celebrate the Super Bowl champions. One was fatally shot. Also, down here in our neck of the woods, there was a shooting today at a mall. This is getting to be, and I hate to say this, but this is getting to be the norm. And we're not even hearing about these stories and all these shootings. But here's what, one of the things that, whether you, and I'm not going to get into the politics about it, but this is one of the things President Joe Biden said. Today's events should move us. They should shock us, and it should shame us into acting. We know what we have to do. We just need the courage to do it. There's a lot of things we need to do. There's a lot of things that are wrong in this world today. And I'm not saying I'm pro-guns or anti-guns or anything like that, but we need to help individuals because it's individuals that are doing this. We need to help them with their mental health. We need to help them, period, so that we can have more of what today is about, which is supposed to be Valentine's Day, and it's about love instead of violence.
Well said. All right.
Candy, can I say one real fast? Candy, let me tell you this part big time. And you're completely correct on things. But when you have a world where everybody has to be 100% right instead of trying to work together to build something, everybody has to be 100% right. You have to have 100% of everything instead of trying to come to a thing, come and debate each other, come to a consensus. When you have that, that's the arrogance and ego that's killing chances to make any kind of difference. And it's an unfortunate situation.
Okay, a couple of news stories I want to get to real quickly. Then we're going to everybody do their introductions. We're going to end it on Peter. When you lose a Super Bowl, somebody's going to pay for it today. San Francisco fired defensive coordinator Steve Wilkes after one season. Prior to that, he was with the Carolina Panthers. Also, Doc Rivers took a job with the Milwaukee Bucks. Somebody's got to replace him as the third person. J.J. Redick will reportedly replace Doc Rivers on the NBA Finals broadcast team. Those are a couple other notes as well. But that said, Cliff Notes version, everybody. Denzel, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
All right. Denzel Sniper 13 on Twitch, Denzel Snipes 13 on YouTube, Denzel Snipes on Facebook, Nellanel 13 on Twitter/X. Tune in to the Gauntlet on Friday night. It's going to be our first episode of the NFL offseason, and season 4 will be debuting soon, so stay tuned.
Jacob.
4 shows a week, sometimes 5 when I'm called off the bench. It's Jake the Pundit on Twitter, Jake the Pundit 1 on TikTok, and a few things in between.
George.
You can follow me at the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune banner, where I write a sports column. You can also see and catch me on 180 Stitches Baseball, on the Sports Exchange, Fire Up, and of course Pundit's Pundit. And you can follow me too. Send me an email at gicorn@yahoo.com or on Twitter at sandgsports99.
Okay, I'll preface this show to Peter Wein. I love you very much, Peter. I'm going to miss you. Candy, is there something you want to say really quickly before we turn it over as we leave?
I was going to say you can find me on 3 Chicks in a Pod or Chicks and Salsa Tuesday nights, typically around 7:30. And then you can catch me tomorrow night on Fire Up on South Florida Tribune's YouTube channel.
Very good. Thank you. And the eyes of Barry Manilow, who wrote a song. Peter, I love you very much. And he had a song called This One's For You. So, Peter, this show is for you. I love you very much. Rest in peace. Candy, take it away for the finale.
And You are going to be at Sebring.
Yeah, I will be at Sebring on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. This chair will be occupied by Candy Ebling.
Right.
She'll be sitting across the table with you, matching wits ends,
Right.
while I burn through a couple cell phones and have that tar around me the whole time.
I
at
hope we
Sebring.
remember to answer the phone.
Me answer the phone. We'll see if
No,
you
not
answer the phone.
Not you. I said, I hope we remember to answer.
Well,
the
you know
phone.
what? I'll be working on my tan if you don't.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, it'll be a pretty high octane. It's pretty neat about when I was talking to Mickey a while back that whatever you do, I can't talk to you about the Daytona 500.
All right. It's humor time. We've got like a minute and a half left.
Okay.
How did you walk through his glass door?
How did I walk through it? I walk in the house, okay,
Yeah.
and I see the door closed, but because I had so much energy going in there, I didn't realize that it was closed until I
Hit it.
And he was asking me about this earlier today. He said, have you walked any more patio doors? Do you walk into them at home? I said, no, Mickey. The only difference between your patio door, or as we call them back in Detroit, door walls, is yours connects to a patio. My patio door goes to the backyard. But we got a kick out of it, as you get to know him.
When you told me the other day that it was a great
still,
meeting, but I walked into his glass door.
Well, you
and I know people who've done that. It's
But he's still laughing about it. I mean, I've heard of breaking the ice, but I wasn't looking to break the glass. I mean, that's a different story. But you know what? It was people have to understand, when I was meeting him for the first time in person, a guy I grew up with, and now I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Now instead of being a fan, I got to put my business cap on here.
Right, that's right.
And therefore,
Walk
it's a
into the
different
door,
situation,
right.
but it worked out real well.
Good way to break.
And
the
I
ice.
do want to end this show up by saying special thanks to my friend Tom Gage, who's a former longtime sports writer, who's a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame, for helping me set this up with Mickey Lolich. Tom Gage will be a future guest on our show, and he is a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame in the Writers Wing. So, Tom, if you're listening out there, thank you very much. Mickey, thanks for being on the program, and Tom and I will be in touch. So, meanwhile, I will be on the road to Sebring. You'll be here. Candy will be here. And Sam, I'm glad you were here, and you had a taste of baseball history today, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
For Peter Wein, for Scott Morganroth, for
Samuel Charles
We're going to go from Gwick to Quick on Thursday.
Right.
All right. Have a great
night, everyone.
Yeah, you bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, Peter did get the name right there, so we have to mention that, Denzel. But then again, he's heard it a lot. So with that said, that concludes this edition of the Sports Exchange Tribute to Peter Wein. Candy, take it away. Roll the music, and we'll do this again